Hello and welcome to this special program. After a median 20% tariff revision announced by Reliance Jio, Bharti also has announced its revised tariff plans affecting a median increase of 15% in prepaid tariffs and an 18% increase in its postpaid tariff base. This is effective the 3rd of July 2024. Now, telecom tariff increases have been long awaited. Companies like Bharti, Vodafone Idea and others have on separate occasions said for a while that telecom tariffs in India are some of the lowest in the world and they need a readjustment higher. Are we at the beginning of a phase of tariff hikes? And does that mean that we are also at the beginning of a phase where earnings for these telecom companies will be on the up and up, will be on an upcycle? These are some of the questions, but not all of the questions we are planning to discuss on this program. I'm Prashant. With me, our telecom expert, Reema Tendulkar, is joining us now as well. Reema, hi. Something we've discussed for a while now and finally come through. So why don't you kick this off by putting these tariff hikes into context? Over to you.
Well, good news for companies, good news for investors, but not such good news for consumers. So get ready to pay more for your mobile bills. Now, yesterday, Reliance Jio took the lead, announced a tariff hike. This is the first tariff hike that we've seen in the last 2.5 years. And in the morning today, Bharti has followed it up with a tariff increase. Now, Jio's tariff increases range from about 12.5% going up to 25%. For Bharti Airtel, the tariff increase ranges from 10 to 20%. Broadly, you would say the tariff increase is on expected lines, much anticipated, but for Airtel at 10 to 20%, maybe slightly lower than street expectation. And guys, remember, you still have 5 days before this comes into effect. This is effective for both the companies from 3rd of July. Now, Reliance Jio, this time, taking the lead in raising tariffs is seen positively by the industry. And here I'm quoting a Kotak report where they say that the last two tariff hikes, December of 2019, it was affected by Vodafone Idea. They had taken the lead. And in December of 2021, that's 2.5 years ago, it was Bharti Airtel which hiked first. And Reliance Jio was actually the last one to raise the tariffs. And unlike Bharti Airtel and Vodafone Idea, who've been very vocal on the need for industry tariff repair, Reliance Jio has not been so upfront about the need for one for the industry in terms of wide tariff hikes. So therefore, Reliance Jio taking the lead in raising tariffs is a sentimental positive for the entire telecom industry, according to the Kotak note. Now let's get to the numbers, right? How much are you going to be paying? Now, the entry-level plan, this is the one which is for the most price-sensitive, the value-conscious. For Reliance Jio, the increase is approximately 22%, while for Bharti Airtel, the increase is about 11%. Reliance Jio minimum plan stands at about 189 rupees per month, while for Bharti Airtel, it now stands at 199 rupees. Let's move on to some of the other plans. And here, just for the purpose of illustration, because telcos have so many plans, right? We're just picking up this 1.5 GB of data plan per day. And here are how the numbers stack up. Now, for Reliance Jio, the increase for a 1.5 GB of data per day plan, for 1 month, the increase is 25%. For 3 months, the increase is 20%. Similarly, for Bharti Airtel, the increase ranges from about 16 to 20%. But despite Reliance Jio's, the increase appearing to be more than Bharti Airtel, Reliance Jio's plans are at a discount to Airtel. This is how the entry-level plans look. Bharti Airtel is at 199, a premium to Reliance Jio, and even for that same 1.5 GB of data plans that I was talking about, for Airtel, for 1 month, you will pay 349, and for Reliance Jio, you will pay 299, and similarly, for the 3-month plan, that's the 84-day plan, Bharti Airtel, you pay 859, similar plan for Jio is 799. So basically, in a nutshell, despite Reliance Jio's percentage increase in the tariff is more than that of Bharti Airtel, Airtel continues to remain at a premium. Also, this time, remember, there is an increase in the postpaid plans. The last hike that we had in December of 2021, there was no increase in the postpaid plans. Now, what does this mean, right? Directly expect an improvement in ARPU. The hike, if it's about 20% increase, expect the ARPUs to increase. But this ARPU increase plays out over the next 2 quarters because everyone's recharge cycle is different. Now, Reliance Jio's ARPUs have been stagnant for the last couple of quarters in the absence of a large tariff increase. While Airtel's tariffs have been steadily inching up because they did raise the minimum entry plan, there was some premiumization, their goal is to hit 300 rupees by way of ARPU. And they're still short of it. Their first goal was 200 rupees. They hit that 2 quarters back. They're at 209 in terms of their ARPUs as of the last quarter, but their goal is to hit 300 rupees to enable a financially healthy business model. Now, stocks have done very well in anticipation of this tariff hike. As we've been saying, we've all been talking about an impending tariff hike. Now, Bharti is practically up 45% so far. Reliance is up 20%. Vodafone Idea appears to be just a 15% hike in 2024. But look at the price increase from its FPO price, which is about 10, 11 rupees. Now, Indus Stars has been a stark re-rating, and Bharti Hexacom has done super well from its issue price, and brokerages are still very bullish. Now, Jefferies further increased the target price on Reliance Industries to 35.80. Morgan Stanley has an overweight call. The question is, what next? Jio, done. Airtel, done. And now all eyes on Vodafone Idea for a potential tariff increase. And also another question is Jio setting the ground for a potential IPO? Is this something that we will be watching out for in the next 12 to 24 months?
All right, Reema, lovely. I mean, put it very, very comprehensively. And, I think we should take it straight to our experts who are joining us. Sanjay Kapoor is former CEO of Airtel. And we have Omkar Tanksale of Access Securities, he's joining us. He's, of course, a senior research analyst. Gentlemen, great to have you both here on CNBC-TV18. Thanks very much for your time. Sanjay, if I can start by asking you, sir, what is how do you read this? I mean, are we making too big a deal of it, or is this really the big one? And it kind of kicks off, as I said in the beginning, a process of tariff repair higher, which perhaps will last at least a couple of years from now.
Thank you for the question, Prashant, and a very good afternoon to all the viewers and all of you at the studio. I think a couple of months back on your program itself, we were debating that there's a long pending need to hike the tariffs, and we were all anticipating that it'll happen post-elections, which has come true. We were also anticipating that the lead has to be taken by either Airtel or Jio, because VIL doesn't have the capability of doing that given their network and catch up that they have to do. Now, before I really answer your question, it's a very enigmatic market, and let me bring in 3 exceptional features of this market. There is seldom a global player or a global market where the number 2 has a higher ARPU than the number 1. There's seldom a market where the number 2 has a premium on pricing compared to the number 1. And there's seldom a market where the price hikes historically have been done by the number 2 or number 3 rather than the number 1. So I think first and foremost, there are some changes that are happening this time, which are welcome changes, that the number 1 in the market has taken the move to up the tariffs. And not only up the prepaid tariffs, but up the postpaid tariffs, which knowingly, I mean, everybody knows that a postpaid tariff going up actually benefits Airtel and Voda more than it really benefits Jio, right? Now, the second thing, the number two still will continue, with the premium. The only attempt that I see that Airtel has made is, though percentages look smaller, what they've done is in absolute numbers, they've kept the gap that was there between them and Jio. I think they've maintained that. Therefore, the percentages on Airtel will always look lesser, but on absolute terms, they are covered. So I think when it comes to incremental revenues that they'll get, I think Airtel will also do equally well, and especially benefiting from their postpaid base, which they have an edge over Jio. Now, coming down to the price hike and its requirement, I think it's a foregone conclusion that in a market which is now consolidating to 2 top players who hold more than 80% of the market, and going forward will probably try to even increase it further. Now, given that there is a pricing power that they have, and this was supposed to come. And secondly, in a market where capital cycles have shortened and you need to make investments behind technology very quickly, I think this is absolutely paramount. And while we say 300 could be, according to me, a medium-term mark, but in the long run, they'll have to go probably even beyond 500. right? They'll have to do that. And given where telecom is today on Maslow's hierarchy, I don't think it'll be a problem to extract that sort of a price of the market. We have to realize one thing: there are so many tariff plans, like rightly Reema said, that for a consumer to interpret this price hike is virtually impossible. They will only come to know the impact once they receive their bills or their decrements on prepaid. That's when they'll realize what really happened. Right now, to really decipher this and actually have a consumer reaction, I think will probably be very, very difficult for anybody. So I think it's a welcome change. I'm happy to see Jio has taken the lead this time, like a market leader should. And it is good for the industry, it is good for the consumer. I just want to add one more thing. When you look at consumer experience, I think we still have a long way to go. And those investments can only happen if we give the right price as consumers, because we can't expect government to subsidize these services. So I think consumer has to pay for these services. And where we stand and becoming globally competitive on our experience, we will have to bear this price hike going forward. Otherwise, the operators will not put as much behind the consumer experience as they should be doing.
So you're batting for sustained price hikes. Some two very important points. One, of course, that Jio has hiked postpaid tariffs, which benefit their competitors more than them. So that's a big positive. And it shows, the way the industry is now working together to improve the financial health. And secondly, you spoke about ARPUs potentially hitting 500 in the medium term. Omkar, come in. Just in the near term, for the benefit, for all those who, trade stocks and invest in stocks, about a 15-20% tariff hike. What does this mean in terms of revenues, margins, and ARPU? What's the EPS impact?
Definitely. I mean, there is a big positive thing that is coming up with the tariff hike because of the higher conversions. We can see from 2G to 4G every quarters, and they are we can see an customer stickiness in terms of data consumption, and data consumption far go beyond the expectation as from the COVID levels. So we can everybody was expecting the tariff hikes, and tariff hikes is meaningfully done for the increase of the ARPU that everybody is expecting to near term 300. We can expect some conversions from to benefit from the conversion of 2G to 4G on the EPS side, maybe around 10 to 12% in the near term. I mean, for the couple of quarters, and going ahead with a desirable ARPU for the Bharti at 300. So we can expect to see how the things getting shaping up, but definitely from the company's perspective, we should be very positive about the tariff hikes impact on the from the company's perspective.
Okay. What we'll do is, gentlemen, stay with us. We'll take a quick commercial break here. We want to just play out some of the sound bites, right? This is Sunil Mittal speaking in March earlier this year, calling for a tariff increase. And we also have Reema, who spoke with Vodafone Idea's CEO, Mr. Mundra, earlier in April. These are very recent conversations, again, on where ARPUs should head. Listen and take that break. We'll see you on the other side.
For several years, we spoke about that 200 rupee ARPU. You've got to that, and now, of course, looking at perhaps 300. What's the outlook as far as telecom is concerned? You've been on the premiumization side of things for a while now. Is a tariff hike possible, likely, on the cards? Take me through what the dynamic looks like at this point in time.
Gopal uses the word tariff repair, and I think that's the right word to say, because hike always looks pretty aggressive. Fact is, when I was in Barcelona just 2 days back for the Mobile World Congress, people are stunned at what level of ARPUs the Indian industry operates. $2.2 a month for almost unlimited bandwidth that is sold. 2 GB a day is even can't even be comprehended by the Western operators, who operate at $30, $40 a month with probably half a GB a day. So Indian industry, if it has to be viable, and these digital highways that have been built, especially by the two main operators, really need to be financially sustainable. For that, I have mentioned 300 rupees ARPU, which will still be just $3.50. Next pit stop is 250, then hopefully 300. And if you ask me, I hope it happens within the coming financial year.
So 300 within the coming financial year, or 250 within the coming financial year?
I hope they should be 250 and then 300 by the time we close the next financial year.
One is that the Indian ARPUs are the lowest, and I think lowest not by a small margin, by a big margin. So that is the important factor. The second thing to be kept in mind is that today none of the players are returning their cost of capital. And it has not been just a year or so, it has been 5 or 6 long years. And that was the scenario when 4G investments were made. 5G investments have added on to that. And 5G monetization is still not to be seen. So the imperative for tariff correction just to get to a return on cost of capital being there.
So what should the ARPU be for you to be able to return your cost of
Again,
capital?
I'm not at a liberty to say that, but there is enough commentary from our peers, and I would say that...
300? That's the commentary from your peers?
So that number appears to be right.
Okay. So ARPUs need to be at 300 for the industry to make a return on their investment.
In the current level of 5G investments, of course, anything is related to the size of investment. And as things stand today, that looks like.
Okay. So guide the market, right? The street is expecting today that we will see a tariff hike post-elections of a magnitude that we've seen in the past, which was 20%, right? The last 2 tariff hikes were 20%. So guide the market. Is this a fair assessment in your own mind?
So I would describe it like this, that I cannot say what would be the next price increase when and how, but I would say that generally speaking, we have seen that this quantum of price increase is absorbed in the market without much of an implication. So I would say that the consumer at this level is willing to accept, and I think generally we've seen in India, you meet many consumers, they are happy to say that, okay, we are willing to pay a slightly higher price or slightly higher ARPU, but we want better services. So.
Telecom tariff hikes, the first in 2.5 years, is the big story. And the question is this the start of sustained tariff increases? Perhaps not every year, but at least once in 2 years, going forward. Sanjay, we are in conversation with Sanjay Kapoor and Omkar Tanksale. Sanjay, one interesting thing in this time's, tariff increases is on 5G. So Reliance Jio has announced unlimited 5G will be only available for 2 GB and above plans, which basically means 299 rupees monthly plans and above. And earlier, and I think it was about 239. So they appear to be taking the first step towards monetizing 5G, differentiating that we're giving you 5G, we're giving you unlimited 5G, but it's going to be available only if you're willing to pay out and shell out a little bit more. Would you read this as a start of 5G monetization, and will we see more of this?
So, Reema, my belief is that 5G monetization is not a function of charging a higher price. It's a function of use cases. And use cases are still depriving the industry of anything that can become sticky with a customer. And I think that has got rolled out in the current auctions that you saw, and the manifestations very clear there that it was a very somber auction, and that nobody was going, full throttle to go and bid for more spectrum. If you look at operators sitting out of GCC, other parts of the world, they all, even in the second rounds, went and bid for 100 megs of spectrum. But the Indian operators didn't do, and rightly so. I'm saying they probably realized that 5G from a use case perspective is still lagging. And if that is the case, then why pump in more money? I think Indian operators, one of the reasons why their stock prices have done well is the fact that they have been very conservative on 5G investments. I've always said, look at China, for example. If China has 3 million 5G sites and they are talking about doubling it in the next 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, whatever time frames, we are far, far, far away. And rightly so. If the customer is not going to be paying, if they're not use cases, then I might up my pricing. But how many people will see the value? The second thing that I want to bring to your notice is that the price hikes today are not apple-to-apple comparison with price hikes of the past. And let me explain that to you. Earlier, when price hikes used to happen, bulk of the revenues for operators were access revenues, which is connectivity, right? And there was very little content and there was very little applications. Today, when you do an ARPU roll up, you have content rolled into it in many forms. And therefore, what a telco gets to keep with himself is much lesser than what a telco kept with himself 5 years back, right? So there's a lot of pass-through that happens as well. When you get free Netflix, when you get free Amazon Prime, when you get a lot of other content that's all bundled in that, then you're not retaining all the revenues, you're passing on a lot to somebody else. So I think that's why these price hikes are very good and they need to go up further, but there may not be an apple-to-apple comparison with the past. And like I've said, 5G, the jury is still out on use cases, and price hike is, it's neither here nor there.
Sanjay, as always with television, we run out of time, not conversation, and not points to discuss. So let me slip in, if I can ask you to, in a brief, concise way, tell me about Vodafone Idea. What does it do for Vodafone Idea's prospects now? Because investors have been pinning hopes on sort of a lot of repair for the sector, and tariffs is one part. What for Vodafone Idea from here?
Yeah, the investors always get excited with the prospects much ahead of the actual consumer experience and rollout on the ground. It's good that Voda Idea has been able to raise some capital. Will that capital be enough to challenge the top two operators in the market? I still have my doubts about it. I think they'll need lot more capital. And the second thing that you need to keep in mind is that whatever money that they are deploying today to become competitive in terms of customer experience, in terms of network, is a lagged effect. They are not going to see the benefits of that tomorrow. It'll take a while before they level up and start competing. So I think, according to me, they are at least 9, 10, 12 months away, where they can go and claim that now their networks are solid and they compete. And the last, which is a handicap, unfortunately, what I've seen in this market, and it's a global trend, once you lose your high-end customers, to just get them back by claiming that you have a network which is now contemporary, which competes, is not that easy. It's a very, very tall order. So I think they'll have to work hard, not only on the network, on the brand, on the perception, on the experience, which is not a 1 day, 2 day, 2 weeks, 10 weeks exercise. It's a longer exercise. I think they have to come back into the fray. And after coming back to the fray, will they be able to challenge the top two guys? I think the top two guys are so well funded and so well entrenched. I think to shake them up from their positions is going to be a very, very, very tall order.
Well put, Sanjay. It's always, we learn so much when we have you on the program, and out of time, as I said, but not out of questions. Thank you very much for joining us, Sanjay. Thank you very much, Omkar, for being with us here on the program as well. Really appreciate your time on CNBC-TV18. I mean, it's not the last of tariff hikes, as both of you alluded to, and of course, it's going to be a continuing conversation. But Hormuz, my colleague, is here in the studio. Hormuz, you looked at what the top 4 brokers, sell-side research houses, are sort of how they're looking at this tariff hike and their view on the sector and stocks. Take it away.
Well, some important takeaways from this is the fact that Jio leading the tariff hikes is a positive. It's a sentiment positive for the industry. And the fact that there are more in the offing. That's the first thing. So now JP Morgan has come out with this, and they're saying that the Jio leading the tariff hike is a statement of intent from them. And that is because their focus has now shifted from market share gains to maximizing or monetizing their investments, is what they're saying. Now, the fact that Jio has straight up hiked their tariffs by 20% instead of doing it in tranches gives them more visibility on the revenue, EBITDA and the free cash flow going forward as well. But they're also saying that every time such a tariff hike has happened, there is a subscriber churn, there is some churn in the SIM additions as well. So you are expecting to see that this time around as well. And the trickle down, the impact, if at all Vodafone Idea also announces such a hike, will benefit Indus Towers as well. Now, Citi is saying that the magnitude of the Jio hike is impressive. What they say is that they are viewing this development not only as a positive for the sector for a short term, but also for a 1 to 2 year period. And they remain positive on the sector, with Bharti and Indus Towers being their top picks. Now, Goldman Sachs is now saying that with the tariff hike out of the way, the sector might have some lack of near-term triggers going forward, and the focus will now shift to earnings growth. And they are assuming that there is at least one more tariff hike that is coming in the next 2 years, and they are seeing that there is a limited reason for the stock multiples to correct from here on, because now the focus will shift to earnings growth, and the earnings profile for both Bharti and Jio is pretty strong. And lastly, Kotak Institutional Equities, where they say that the tariff hike is largely in line with expectations. The Jio leading the hike is also a sentiment positive, as I just said, because the focus has shifted to the ROIs, and the tariff hike that Jio has carried out is already built in to their estimates. So largely a positive commentary coming in from brokerages as well, a sentiment positive for the sector.
Thank you very much for that, and that's all the time we have for you on our special show.